So my name is Doug Hanson. I was an agriculture teacher for 12 years, and then 9 years ago entered into the seed world, and we're located an hour south of Chicago. We do have highly productive soils, very fortunate for where I live, and corn soybean production is definitely the predominant opportunity where I'm at. So bringing cover crops into that part of the world actually came in through the livestock side. I specialize in forages and cover crops, and being an ag teacher, seeing the need in Illinois for education on forages, I jumped into that opportunity back in '05, and then when commodities started going up for corn and soybeans, we got over $3 in corn, and the inputs went up so high. As we were penciling things out for the livestock producers, both dairy and beef, it wasn't penciling out. It was more expensive to raise the hay than what the hay was worth. So we entered into the cover crops knowing there was agronomic benefit to it, but we were after a cheaper source of feed. And if I want to look at the selfish side of it, there's two selfish sides of it for me. If I didn't help my customers to figure it out, they weren't going to be there the next year for that winter meeting. And second of all, and you'll see this in this program, I had entered into an EQIP program back in '02 that took 20 acres, and we put up 80 acres, put up 22,000 feet of fence, a winter feeding station, thought we were going to raise horse quality hay, sell into the Chicago hay market, and graze the acres where we didn't have hay. And all of a sudden, I was in a situation where my inputs were just too high, and realized I had the biggest opportunity to just go all grazing on that 80 acres, but still had a lot of things to figure out. So my program is a little different than the first two, because I don't just talk about myself, even though I like talking about myself. I don't just talk about myself, I talk about my customers, because my customers, that's the other selfish things I've lined up for myself. My customers are where I get my best experiences. And by the way, when I started doing programs teaching them, what I learned is the guys who were grazing, the guys who were doing the different things, they were the ones who were most profitable. I paid very close attention to that. Also had the fortunate opportunity to work with a lot of, and still do, organic producers, and just started seeing some things that were all kind of coming together. And then all of a sudden, cover crops come along. But let's start off with, I did that before. It's not like the television. You wouldn't know that I've used these for the last 20 years, would you? So, 3 things to lay out into your mind. First of all, cover crops with livestock is a no-brainer. Simple statement that we can all throw into our minds and remember. If you're using cover crops, corn, soybean producer, wheat, throw whatever crop in you want. Bringing livestock in is a no-brainer. Whether you're bringing in for yourself as another profit opportunity, or maybe you're trying to expand the operation, need some more labor, or maybe you want to bring a family member back in. And last but not least, guys, cover crops is a no-brainer. And I'm preaching to the choir here. So here's where that first quote came from, though, guys, and it just came 1 week ago today. Not that I haven't heard it before, but when it came from a 65, 70-year-old farmer that did cover crops for the first time, and he came to one of my winter meetings, and he said, cover crops with livestock is a no-brainer. He had broadcasted winter rye with radishes, utilizing dry fertilizer application, so he used his local provider. And then he came in and hit that with a vertical tillage tool, get some seed-to-soil contact. Did it on 65 acres. That was his first go. He grazed that in the fall. He grazed it in the spring. Burned it down, planted his soybeans, had a 62 bushel yield, and as you can see, his next best field was 56. So, as he said, cover crops with livestock's a no-brainer. So here's another scenario, and this is Payne, Illinois, and this is just south of Decatur, where we know that a lot of some good information has been coming on cover crops. But Bill and Nancy Ruto, they're livestock producers. They cash farm somewhere around 450. The best grass that I can put in your hands as far as cool season grass is concerned. High energy, high quality, and it will increase the quality of that rilage. Chopped 700 tons at 63% moisture off of 80 acres, 700 tons of feed. Planted all 80 acres into soybeans in May. In the fall, they harvested 60-plus bushel soybeans. If you remember, that was the drought year, 2012, and they were very dry. That was 8 bushel better than any other bean field they had. Needless to say, they became believers in cover crops right away, and the next year went in, signed up all of their acres. All of their acres are now under cover. They still only use whatever they need for feed. The rest will just get burned down and planted into, but the reality is they will always have enough feed opportunity for their livestock operation. Very well protected, which is important in my world, because I like to talk about risk management a lot. I think it's important in Illinois, the high dollar cash rents we have, the high dollar land, and you have to compete against corn and soybean, which is well insured. So, down here, gross return per acre, $1,500 per acre. Raise your hand if you would be happy with $1,500 per acre gross return. Okay? If you're making more than that, then you can have this, and I'll sit and I want to listen. So, just to let you know, though, that silage, guys, if you look at the very last thing, 3.25 tons of dry matter per acre, but that is not a carrier feed, okay? This is a complete feed. This is what they were using to feed the 140 mama cows that were in their third trimester, 30 bred heifers, 45 yearling heifers, and these animals were all being fed for a production sale that was going to take place in April off of that silage. So it's not like this is what he's using to rough the cows through the winter. And I actually went to his website last night for you guys' benefit, and here's an example of a bred heifer up there in the upper left-hand corner that's never had a kernel of corn. And I even pulled off the bull that I bought off of his farm that day. That was a yearling bull that's only had 7 pounds of grower feed during the winter months. I brought him home, threw him in with mature cows, and he gained weight on grass throughout the summer. So we're talking about being able to raise cattle that can thrive on this crop. So, going to that second bullet. If you're using cover crops, bringing in livestock is a no-brainer. Here's a family that Jim is about 30 years old, came home from college. His dad, he wanted to come back into the farming operation, knew they couldn't grow with the crop side of things, so they brought cattle in for the first time. They were have been utilizing a lot of different summer annuals behind wheat. So they would raise wheat, they would put in sorghum sudan grass, which is what this field is, maybe millet. Maybe they'd plant oats with radishes, oats with turnips. Oats with radishes and turnips is kind of what we've gone into today. But they have a system that is pretty common in Illinois if you're raising cattle in Illinois. If you have a tree, you have a cover source and you can raise cattle. We don't have many trees in Illinois as a whole. But they have some timber. It's about 10 miles away from home. Have some timber that they take the cows to in the summer months, graze on the timber, and then plant their crop rotation basically is set up in that area where they'll have the wheat, harvest the wheat, and then they can come in, and as you can see, this is a cow path that leads right into that sorghum sudan grass where Jim was just standing. So they'll graze the permanent pasture until the summer annuals are ready. Similar program to what I do and a lot of my customers that I'm working with. We try to keep the cows out on the soil as much as we can, out in the fields. We think it's good for the fields. We think it's good for the cows. And then he also plants some stuff up around his house because they do their calving in the winter months up at the home farm. But this is the side that I really like. Once again, 2012, year of the drought. We worked hard the last 7-8 years to protect people so that you didn't have to sell cows during a drought. Kept talking about that 20-year drought that was going to come that was 4 years late. But it did finally come as we knew it would, and there'll be another one follow it. We know that. In the year of the drought, they did fence in an 80-acre field by their home that never had fence on it. All they did was the perimeter, which kept it cheap. You look at the dollar numbers there. Flew in winter rye and turnips for the first time that they ever had them aerial applied. They'd always drilled their cover crops. So this was a new experience for them. Grazed the corn, standing corn stalks with the cover crop in it, and took 89 cows and had them grazing for 40 days. And they put $150 a ton on the hay that they didn't have to sell in 2012. I would have bought every bale of that at $150 a ton in the winter of 2012, and they wouldn't have sold it to me. Hay was bringing $200, $225 if anybody even had any to sell. But they put a value of $125 or $150 on it, and still came out in 1 year, paid for the fencing. Now, can you go out, fence 80 acres, bring a bunch of cows in, throw it on there for 40 days and make money? Heck no. They had a system in place that now they can take and benefit from the other farm acres that they have. And they didn't put any cows in that fence this year. They may not next year. At the same time, if they want to, need to, they can. The fence is there. Easy to maintain. It's a 20, 30-year fence, no problem. So this is something that as I look at it, this is something that anyone can do with a little bit of infrastructure and obviously some knowledge of using cover crops. So one thing I did want to point out, though, I've got 89 cows. They were a 60-cow family, but in the year of the drought, they split with one of my other customers, split a potload of bred heifers out of Kansas and brought in, so they increased their numbers in the fall of 2012 after worst drought since '88 in our area. So to me, that gets me pretty excited because that means things are working. Because I do have a passionate goal of keeping and increasing livestock in Illinois, and I'm seeing this all come together, especially at a program like this. So another great quote that really just comes right off the backside of what I just showed you. And I was at the Driftless Region Beef Conference here about 3 weeks ago. Galen Erickson from University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and this is supposed to have quotes underneath it, but we have enough residue on 10% of the irrigated corn acres in Nebraska to feed all the cattle in Nebraska. Now this is very unique because no other state has corn residue like that, correct? I mean, Illinois doesn't, nor Indiana, nor Ohio, nor Iowa. I mean, this is everywhere, right, guys? Anybody ever seen corn residue not get utilized by cattle? You ever see corn residue just get tilled under? No? No one? Man, why are you guys here? So when he said, it did throw me, obviously, a few states away, people have the same scenario taking place. The reality is we can feed a lot more cattle in America than what we're feeding. And we've already showed you some tonnage that can be raised off of ground. In reality, in Illinois, we can raise more ton after the insured cash crop is harvested. We can raise more ton than some of you sitting in here can raise all year long on your ground. We are about a 28 to 32 inch rainfall area with deep soils. So, cover crops is a no-brainer. Okay, I started off by saying this is what I know. I'm going to show you a few pictures because pictures are fun. This is my family, so Hanson family cattle. We do not raise show cattle, but we do show cattle. We show cattle because it's a fun part for our family to be a part of. Show cattle cost a lot of money to raise because they come with a lot of other problems. I have to have a problem-free cattle system because I have a full-time job. I farm with my dad and my uncle. We farm about 2,200 acres of crop ground, and the reality is cows got to take care of themselves. So we built this system as part of the EQIP program, and as I said in the first group, we started this in around 03, 22,000 feet of fence, and if I could do it all again, I would take out all the interior fencing, and all I would have is perimeter fence. The one thing, though, that is nice about this is that I do have a lane right here. We have lanes through here next to the ditch, and this is a winter feeding station. My cows do have the ability, whether it's 100 degrees or whether it's 20 below zero, they have the ability to get back to a structure at any time, no matter what paddock we're on, and that is something that I learned was important. I didn't think cattle needed cover until I had 140 head of cattle. When you go from 20 head to 140 head, you learn some things. This right here is actually where the next pictures are going to go. I was basically standing about right here facing the farm site. As I said, that's a ditch there. This is actually divided in fours as well. It just doesn't show up when I had them send me that. See all the different colors up there though? We plant stuff year-round, except for when the ground's frozen. So we use sorghum sudan grass, millet, kale, radishes, turnips, any kind of mix that you would talk about that's going to be beneficial for making feed. We feed as much, even though we spent $80,000 on a winter feeding station. I don't even know if my wife knows that. Is this being videotaped? Even though we spent that on a winter feeding station, we do everything we can to keep the cows out of it. Because if they're in it, then it's more work for me hauling out the manure, and it's not as good for the cows. But we have to have it there in place. So I want to run through one year when we really had things rolling good for us, and then we did have drought that year and have had 4 years of drought amongst, also some flooding of spring of 2013. But I'm going to show you a few pictures of the cows running through this. So we took 63 gestating cows and actually ran them on the 25 acres of rye. And it was a combination of cereal rye and annual rye. They actually got 3 grazings off of it over 2 months. But if you're looking at, how many cows can we run on this, I do want to point out, though, that we did get on those rye pastures about 2 weeks earlier than normal. This is actually round 2 when I'm taking these pictures. You'll notice there are not any calves in the pictures. And this is a panoramic view. So I'm going to show you 4 slides. It's a cheap man's panoramic view. That's that winter feeding station up there. It's about 96 by 38 or whatever it is that the plans had called for. I don't get excited about stuff like that. I like cows and I like seed and I like plants and stuff that works. So there's a second picture of the group of cows. You notice there really aren't any babies in there yet. And just so you can see, there's a couple non-black calves out there. We are not prejudiced in cattle color. But about May 15th is when we're set up to have the first calves drop. So you got a little calf drop in there on a heifer. We had 24 heifers inside that group on this rilage. As you can start to see the calves coming, you see the seed heads in the winter rye. Obviously, you'd rather not have seed heads, but the reality was it was working so good grazing, and we kept grazing. We didn't stop to harvest anything, and I thought it was good for the cows, good for the soil. So a few more pictures as you see the cow herd. As we start dropping babies, everything starts coming pretty fast. So we dropped over 50 calves in the first 45 days on that out of the 63 cows. We were having a lot of fun. I actually thought I knew what I was doing. And that was on the rilage there. The two ones with yellow tags on the right there, those were heifers that in February I would not show you the pictures of what they look like in February, what the cows looked like in February. I would not have let anybody see them. I had roughed them through the winter, and I thought I had pushed it to the limits. We threw them out on rilage and put them out there in 6 weeks, and it just amazed me how much they bloomed. So I've really learned a lot about raising beef cattle, because growing up, we fed waterway, hay, and $1.56 corn. I go back and look at my FFA record books. So we didn't do anything like this growing up. This was not the way I raised cattle growing up. And so June 1st, we're supposed to go to the permanent pastures, but the 5 acres where we fed round bales all winter, we feed as much hay outside as we can, sacrifice a 5-acre paddock, come in March, and we'll plant oats and peas to that 5 acres so we can scavenger the manure, the urine, so on and so forth, have cover on it, and have something to either harvest or to graze. Well, we like to be on the rye through most of May, stay off the permanent pastures, because we use a heavy legume base on our permanent pastures. I use a heavy amount of alfalfa. I use red clover, white clover. If I get on them too early, A, the cows can be loose, B, you can lose cattle from bloat. Now, I take a lot of precautions for bloat, and I'm careful when I work with my customers to make sure I know their management levels, but you got to really manage if you're going to use a high legumes. So that's one of the reasons we wait. This 5 acres, guys, lasted over 2 weeks on the 60-some head of cows with calves on it, because we were just giving them small amounts at a time. So just kind of see how we let them do that. And we were grazing all the way to the ground. Didn't have to. I know a little bit more now. I'd be a little more willing to leave some residue. But at that time, I was under the motive that you try to get every bit that you can and run through the cow. And that's what it ends up looking like as you piece it down. So after that, we grazed sorghum sedan grass. We grazed the permanent pastures, about 20 acres worth. So basically went from April 1st to October 1st on 140 head. Had 2 inches of rain from July 1st to October 1st. We ran 140 head with no hay. And that was fun until October 1st came and we had no hay. So then the learning experience came, because I planted my cover crops for the fall. We didn't have the rains. Luckily, they germinated, they grew. They gave me spring grazing, but no fall grazing. Made for a very difficult winter. But we did make our way through it. So, to reiterate, cover crops with livestock's a no-brainer. You can bring livestock into the system if you're doing cover crops. Cover crops is a no-brainer. Here's the next generation. I think that we can increase cattle production not just in Illinois but in the whole United States, because the incentive is there financially, and I think there's a feed source that's there that we just have not utilized. And there's the next generation. I got a couple girls that enjoy it. I enjoy them being able to go out, string wire with me. We don't mix a TMR, and if there's equipment people in here, I apologize, but I hate equipment. It breaks down, and it just makes my life difficult. But we can go out and we can set things up on Sunday afternoons, have it all set up to where we just take wires down in the middle of the week and let cattle come into fresh feed. We don't worry about rotating them every day. That is absolutely the best way to do it. I can't do it. I have an off-farm job. A lot of people my age or younger than me are the same way. So we do what's best for our situation. Someday when I retire, maybe between coming to stuff like this and running the cows, maybe we'll rotate them every 5 or 6 times a day, however some people do it. And I think that was it.